So, like most of us, I spend a lot of my time thinking about things that I believe in and things that really ring true, and not a lot of time thinking about things that don't ring true. But today there was an event that happened to me where I was reading something on social and it hit me. Oh my goodness, I thought I really believed this, but maybe I don't. It got me thinking. And what it was, I'll show it to you real quick here. Oops, if I can get this thing. Here we go. Says, never say that's not my job. That oozes of arrogance and laziness. Chip in to help with what needs to be done, even if it's not your responsibility. Clean out the coffee pot, take out the moldy dish from the refrigerator, do what needs to be done, period, even when nobody's watching. And I appreciate the sentiment in that statement. And I will say that when I see the word never or always, especially when it's tied to some social media post, my hackles get raised because unless it is specifically related to God, the words never and always typically don't belong in our conversations. But that being said, I like the idea of the helpfulness that goes along with that. But as I saw that today, there were three specific areas that I went, wait a minute, I need to be skeptical about just applying that everywhere. So I thought I'd share those. The first is in the area of parenting, because I know as a parent that if I were to follow this philosophy on a regular basis, that my children would never do anything around this house and the adults would do everything in this house, because if we didn't think that it was our job to do it and we still did it, we see a whole lot more than they do, and that could be a problem. So the first area that I want to just kind of raise the flag and going, there is a place for this is not my job and you need to do it, is when you're training others. This is a great philosophy for making sure a job gets done. But when you're in the business about more than just getting a job done and actually training others to do a job, then this philosophy really doesn't work out very well. You can imagine that if the CEO were to go around and go see things that needed to be done, they would spend a whole lot of time doing things that weren't necessarily their job. Second area is specifically related to when there are things that are outside of your authority. That's not my job is also when you're talking about something that is your boss's job or is your parents' job, or do I dare say is God's job. And if we're doing things that aren't our job because they're the job of someone who's in authority over us, that can be a big, huge problem. And I see that a lot in the counseling work that I've done, as well as in my own personal life, where I try to take on the job of God. One of the things in a specific area that God's really worked in my heart is as far as being the provider of our family. It is not my job to provide for this family. It is God's job to provide for this family. And I really had this lesson brought home in a really big way because I had this wrestling in my heart. Two opposite thoughts. One is that the husband is to provide for the family, and two, that God is our provider. And those were bucking against each other over and over again. And when that started to come out, I started losing sleep. I was not at peace. I had fear, anxiety, all kinds of things early in the morning. My head would be spinning about all kinds of things, and it was just not the way that God wanted me to live. What happened as I laid it before the Lord is He arranged my priorities and He shifted my thinking so that I now know that God is the provider and I am the abider. When I abide in Him and do what He asks me to do, provision takes place. I play the role of abiding leader of this family, so the right work gets done at the right times, and things work out well. All that to say, if I were to continue in the role of taking on something that was not mine and taking on something that was God's, it could be a really huge problem. The third area is when the person who is in authority is doing things that are not their job, and it's keeping them from the things that are their job. And I'll use Jesus as an example. He was not afraid to wash the disciples' feet. However, he didn't avoid going to the cross because he knew that there would be feet to be washed later on, the next day, and the next day after that. He gave the example of servanthood and servant leadership and yet he still played the role that he needed to, and he didn't let a job that wasn't his get in the way of what truly needed to be done and what only he could do. So that's a third area that I think that this comment about it's not my job can really get in the way, is if when you say you do things that are not your job to the avoidance of what you are called to do and what your responsibility truly is. So those were the things that hit me today and are growing in me this heart of abiding in my Lord, recognizing more and more the Lordship of Christ in my life, in every aspect of my life, from my finances to my daily tasks to my businesses, all that sort of thing. Seeking after Him and abiding in Him moment by moment, as the branch needs to be abiding in the vine.